Well, today on Belonging in Classrooms, you get to meet one of my favorite people. I will never forget being invited as a parent to the first gathering of the Advancing Equity Coalition. I remember sitting around the room as people were introducing themselves, and I think I called myself just a mom, which, by the way, ever since that moment, I have always corrected folks and said, never say just a mom. You're never just a mom. And so I listened to people introduce themselves, talk about their why, talk about their work, talk about why they were there. And I just remember thinking, like, if I'm going to get an invite back to this table, I want to work with whatever these folks are building. And Miss Julia Freeman was at that table, and her words have had an impact on me throughout my work. Her sayings, her challenges, her deeper thinking, it's always done with such encouragement and love and hope and trust and believing in people. And so today you get to learn from her. She's probably going to say 3 brilliant things that you're going to want to put on a t-shirt while we talk. And one of my favorite things about talking with Miss Julia is the way that I get to share every lesson that she shares with me with someone else. And so you're going to I hope you have that moment for yourself as much as I get to. And I'm so excited for all of us today to get to listen to Miss Julia Freeman on Belonging in Classrooms. Miss Julia, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Heather.
Yeah, so tell me, can you introduce yourself to our listeners? Who are you? What's your role? What's your org?
Yes, Julia Freeman. She, her, hers, my pronouns. I work for Voices for Racial Justice. I've been there for 16 years and going. I am the director of community engagement. And that's my passion. It's my dream job.
Is it? And so tell me, your org, and then specifically you as a representative, are a member of the Advancing Equity Coalition, a founding member.
Yes.
You are also gratefully the chair of our board.
Yes.
And so why is it important to you to be in coalition? What does coalition mean?
Coalition, and I've been in many coalitions over the years and been asked to be part of many coalitions. So I am very selective of the coalitions that I choose. And the coalitions that I choose have to be deeply invested in the people for which they are engaged with, and I don't say serving, but in partnership with. And that is one of the reasons I, joined Advancing Equity Coalition, and that's one of the reasons why I took a leadership position, because it's not just doing it for the sake of doing it or for power or prestige. It's because Advancing Equity Coalition really care about the children in Minneapolis public schools and their parents and the community, surrounding community, and to see that dedication and that love and to carry the same values and appreciation that I do and my org does, had to engage, had to be part of it.
So, do you think that being in coalition expands your capacity?
Yes, absolutely. Here's the thing about coalitions. Sometimes people join coalitions just to increase numbers for mobilization.
Okay.
More people for turnout, that kind of thing.
Sure.
I like to engage coalitions around the strategic minds coming together, the group think, but also the group value, right? And the like-mindedness of walking together, not in lockstep, because some of us, we have many different things, but finding that commonality to work on something together is very powerful and meaningful in a coalition space.
Because you told me a long time ago, don't wait around for everybody.
No.
We go with the going.
We go with the going. Go with the goers. Go with those who are moving. The old saying about the faithful few. Things are built with the faithful few. It's true. It's true. So go with the faithful few. Go with the goers, because other people are going to come along. They come in, and I always say it's kind of like being part of being the bus driver. People come get on the bus. People get on the bus, right? But that bus is going in a certain direction, going in a certain spot.
Yes.
And people might need to get on and get off, but we're all going on the bus together somewhere.
Yeah, like, and so it's okay that someone needs to take a break.
Exactly.
But as long as the values are defined. So the coalition has those defined values that define purpose, a defined destination.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
And you might have got off here, but you might get back on the bus farther down because it's the right time to get on the bus to get to where we're going. So
yeah. So like, what does your org, Voices for Racial Justice, and the values of the Advancing Equity Coalition, like, what are those shared values?
The shared values is really working with those who are closest to the issue.
Yep.
That is what we do at VRJ, and that's what Advancing Equity does. You know, it's a Aborigine quote. This quote has been given to lots of people, and because lots of people have said it. Even me, one day they would say, Julia Freeman said it. It's an Aborigine quote, and this quote, it has no author. But it's, if you've come to save me, then you're wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound with mine, then come, let us work together for change. You know, let us work together for change. So that's what coalitions are, right? Ones who are really working with those and listening to those who are closest to the issues, because they're the experts, like I always say.
They are the experts. They are the experts. Yes. So, okay. You have been around the landscape of Minneapolis public schools for a long time. As a matter of fact, when I remember listening to my first meeting where I first met you, and I remember thinking, well, if this person can do it this long, I cannot complain. So can you just talk a little bit tell me about the equity and diversity impact assessment and why it's necessary. Like, to me, one of the things that's really interesting about the way you see the work is the way you see data and relationship not existing without each other, but guiding each other. Exactly. So how did that come together for this project in Minneapolis Public Schools?
Well, Voices for Racial Justice have been doing many race equity impact analysis for our work for many, many years.
Okay.
Since 2007. And since that time, we have always been pushing, like, the legislators and whatnot to look at all of the whole Minnesota when they're looking at creating legislation and voting on legislation. What is the impact on those who are closest to the issue? Not just who voted for you, but what is the impact of everyone, right? Being all inclusive. So we created a tool, right? A racial equity impact assessment tool that is currently the RIA, but now we redefine what that tool is, but we call it the RIA, which is Racial Equity Impact Assessment. And that is going through the legislators right now. It's a tool that we're introducing and whatnot. It took a long time to get there. But the work we were doing with Minneapolis as a coalition at that time, we had a collaborative. We had a collaboration with several other groups. It was called the Racial Equity Race Equity Collaborative and Organizing Collaborative. And it's funny, the acronym was EEOC, the Race Equity Organizing Collaborative. But anyway, we were already working with Minneapolis for many years around them actually paying attention to the children of all the children, especially the children who were in low poverty schools, the children who were closest to the issues, who was going to be mostly impacted. And we had asked them to do, when they were doing Changing School Options, we asked them to do a race equity impact assessment of that. And it showed how will children be impacted, which was amazing for that to happen. And so then we asked them to work with those communities who were going to be impacted. From that work, which was really amazing, gave power back to those who were going to be experiencing the disparities of the changes and the disruption of their children, to feel more powerful, to be part of the solutions, right?
Yes.
So that's when we decided that we should have something more permanent. One, there needed to be a race equity policy. And in that policy, there needed to be a tool. So that's why the equity, diversity, impact assessment tool is embedded in that policy. And so that was passed. But then nothing happened because there was no committee, there was no money really given. There was no staff hired. So we had to push for that. And so what's exciting about the Equity, Diversity, Impact Committee is the fact that anything that's over $100,000 that impact students' learning, right? Any policies it's not only the policies, but it's also vendors, different things that's going to impact the children in Minneapolis should get an EDIA.
Yes.
So, and so it is, I'm very happy for that committee. Once I was on it for many, many years.
You were.
I got off of the committee because I had to move on I didn't have the capacity to continue to stay. But the committee is a tool not only for the board of directors, so then they can make an informed decision, because having that data allows them to make an informed decision. And my favorite thing to say to the board of directors is this: so director so-and-so, if you make a decision on this tonight and a reporter comes to you and put a microphone in your face and asks you, why did you make that decision? Isn't it more powerful to say, based on the data of the Equity, Diversity, Impact Assessment that we receive, it's going to impact children this way. And so I felt that I had to vote this way because of that, more so than I got pressured by a certain part of the city, or I got pressured by this particular thing, or someone who's going to give to my campaign, whatever. For whatever reasons, people make decisions.
Yes.
That you can make a very informed decision based on that data. It's a more powerful and a real way to be accountable.
They just finished one on transportation.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it was fascinating to learn some of the things. I think they came forward with some recommendations. One of the things that came out of that study, I sort of like elevate for the listeners why it matters.
Yes.
One of the things that came out of that study was that the way we track buses, so for parents to know that their child is late, the app that we use has no translation.
Oh, no.
Available.
I never knew that.
Cannot. I didn't either. Till the EDIA on transportation happened. And so now the board said to the transportation department, you may not purchase anything to replace this that cannot translate.
Awesome.
So that process, even though it has flaws, and even though we don't always follow it, it's still having its impact years later over all these different categories. It's pretty incredible.
Because the EDIA committee, all we can do is offer to the board of directors our recommendations.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But what I love about it the most is community is in the center. You have to. Part of an EDIA, you cannot do an EDIA without engaging those who are closest to the issue. And that was my main thing that I wanted to accomplish before I left that committee.
Speaking of that, like, what keeps you going in this work? Like, okay, I know that there are nights where I lay awake and I can't sleep. I think about the problem and I think about things and I wonder about my impact. What keeps you going?
You know, Heather, I want to quit almost every day.
That's like one of those things where you're like,
honestly, I want to quit almost every day.
Yeah.
It's the truth. I want to quit almost every day. But I always say what keeps me grounded in this work is I have 10 beautiful grandchildren.
Yep.
And 4 of them have graduated and I have 6 more to see through, right? And I am excited because all of the students in Minneapolis public schools, all the students in Minnesota, because, you know, we're a statewide organization at VRJ, when we focus on BIPOC students.
Yes.
Because of the many inequities that these students face. That's our focus. And I tell you that is what keeps me going, is when I hear from a student, when I hear from a child, when I hear from a parent, and they say this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and I have a solution to that, that's what keeps me going. Because I know it is deeply embedded in my knowing of all knowing that those who go to sleep with the problem wake up in the morning with solutions, and things and decisions and practice and everything is done for students, without students, and to parents, without parents.
What do you think it is that keeps those in power from believing that the way you and I do?
It's power.
Power. Just flat out. Like,
just flat
the
out
reality is, no matter what we do, we can do all kinds of games around it. But it's, I want to hold the power to make this decision.
I want to hold the power. And it's about a mind shift. Shifting from asset-based, shifting from deficit-based to asset-based.
Yes.
To really to see the value and the power that students and parents have to offer solutions for their own destiny. I say, this is according to Julia, the definition of power is being able to change your own reality.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And I heard someone say that once, and trust me, I don't remember who said it, but I feel once you use it 3 times, you could say, I always say. But yeah, so years ago, it was so many years ago, I heard that. But yeah, to be able to define your reality is power. So I think that's, and thinking about that, it's hard to sometimes share your reality. That's why it's power.
Yes. So that's why we're okay. Those with power and privilege are okay with giving 10% of our plant sale to you, or we're okay with spending the day packing backpacks to give, but we're not as interested in saying, I'm willing to go to the Capitol until all public schools are funded with what they need, as long as we got it okay where we are.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel that the biggest con that is happening in Minnesota right now around education is having us believe there's scarcity. There is not scarcity. It's plenty. It's plenty. If we all united and said together, equitably, distribution, no matter what our ethnicity is, no matter what our race is, no matter what our religious belief is, no matter what our relationships to whatever, unions, politicians, whatever. If we say, look, we know that, and we say this as a state, we say this as a city, we say this as a county, we all come together and say, look, we know that there's money. We know that there's money. And we want to unite that you invest in public schools, period. Deeply invest in public schools.
Yeah.
And this is our idea of what that investment looks like. But because we are not united in that thought that the state and the federal owe us investment in public schools, we are happy with being pitted against one another.
Yes.
We're happy with piecemeal out here and there and there and there. We accept that we have to go out and do booster clubs. We accept that we have to have that bake sale or plant sale. We accept that we have to beg for money. We accept that those parents that are doing so much with less has to go and try to scramble up that money somehow for something extra for their children, for education. And I truly believe money can be found, just like money was found for free lunch for everybody. So I'm thinking that if money can be found for things, right, which our children need to eat, so that's amazing free lunches, we can actually come together and say, that's an investment. See that investment? You're investing in our kids' nutrition, which also leads to their healthy minds to be able to learn.
Yes.
Let's all, and people were like, no, not for people who can afford it. No, that's the wrong thing. All our children need deep investment in their education. So that's why they got us pitted against. Oh no, not
even for that.
Yeah,
the opponents. Don't give it to this suburb, this suburb, this suburb. They have enough money.
No. And so then that is so amazing to sit next to your fellow peer and eat the same food and be able to have the same thing, knowing that you're not teased about you get free reduced lunch or you got to get this or you have to get that or you can't afford. It's amazing that now you had just something like bullying. bullying and food scarcity, keeping food from people who couldn't afford it, and letting them know that you get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you can't have free lunch because your mom didn't put any money on your book. So the impact is very huge beyond just the free lunch. It shows you what can happen when people are united around change for real. So yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of every single time that I do a fundraiser or I'm bringing things to people, lots of times people want to donate something, and that's great. That's wonderful. But to me, part of the process of meeting someone's need is also in giving them the choice of what that need is, right? So as much power as I can give along with that gift.
Yes.
Right? So it's different for me to go out. It's more fun. And I would spend money differently.
Yes.
If it were mine, right? I might want a deal. I might want to go do this. I just did a fundraiser and bought the things, but it was important for that person who was the recipient to make all the choices. Yes. I said, this is how much you were given. You want to go with me? I wanted to go.
Yes.
Person said, no, I don't want to go. I want to do it online. That's not comfortable for me.
See, that's awesome.
Yeah. So like that whole thing, right? Of like, how much power can I give in exchange while I'm meeting a need? Not like I get to decide what's good for people.
See, that power right there was that person defining their reality. Their reality was to be able to shop online and have it delivered right to their house, to have that control and not feel as though they were given something that they were though they were given something, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't feel as though that they were like a charity case or anything like that. They felt like, oh, I have this resource. Now I can decide how I use this resource. So that's taking back power, which is always very important, especially for BIPOC people. Because our power is taken all the time on a regular basis.
Okay, so as we wrap, you've spent forever watching Minneapolis public schools, being frustrated by them, cheering for them when you need to, calling them higher when you need to.
Yes.
Is there like one story or one specific instance that like where Minneapolis public schools made an impact on you that you, for good or for bad, that you want to share?
It's very interesting. I'm going to go back to, because this is really what grounded me in the work. Well, back to this changing school options. And Jill Davis, who was the chair of the board at that time, the board had asked the district to do the race equity impact assessment, right? And they didn't do it. So they asked them and they came back and hadn't been done. And so I got a call. It's about 11 o'clock at night from her saying, oh my God, they didn't do the assessment. And so I said exactly what I just said to you around. So when you make these really hard choices, right? And they didn't do the assessment. And you can say, I chose this because this was the least disruptive. Not that it saved the district money, because the one that the administration was pushing was the one that was going to save the district the most money, but was going to be the most disruptive for kids. And we know with every disruption, it impedes the learning of children.
That's right.
That's something that we know. And I asked her that, and she says, no, I guess I cannot. If I got a mic in my face and was asked this, because I don't know what the disruption, what is actually the least disruptive. So my response was, so they have to go back and do the assessment, right? And she said yes. And they unanimously told them that they had to go do the assessment. And when they came back, they voted unanimously for the one that was going to be least disruptive for the children, and they worked with each community to ease that disruption. And so when you think of something of that nature, and it was school closures and it was boundary lines and all of that, it impacts me that if you can find a common ground, right? If you can find a common ground to have dialogue around what it's going to be like for disrupting for school closures, for changing, the boundary lines and everything. It's always going to be disruptive. But if you can define your reality as a parent and as a student on what that impact going to look like, or solutions to that impact,
it's not going to be the rug yanked up from underneath you.
It's not going to be so jarring.
Yes.
And you feel powerless to not be able to give voice to it. And so that is the thing that grounds me in this work, to know that it's not only for our students, but it's for those who make our decisions as well, to have that she felt very powerful after that. Like, now I can make an informed decision.
Yeah. Right.
Because now I have the information I need. And parents and youth felt powerful. Now that we know this information on how we're impacted, this is how we want to, ease that impact. So that's great. So that's my.
We've done it once. That means we could potentially do it again.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was, as always, I learn something every time I get to talk to you. And thanks again for being on Belonging in Classrooms.
Thanks for having me, Heather.